Welcome back, everyone. It's good to be with you again, diving deep into Ruhi Book 8.
Always exciting to be back.
Last time we kind of left things hanging a bit. We touched on the weight of Abdu'l-Bahá's passing.
A truly monumental moment in Baha'i history.
Absolutely. And this time, we're really going to unpack what happened next.
Sounds like we're headed into Ruhi Book 8, Unit 2 then. The Guardian of the Faith.
Right on. And I know some folks might be thinking, hold on, I already covered this in my Ruhi study. But think of this as a chance to, go deeper, to uncover the nuances and the implications of this period.
I like that, like peeling back the layers, revealing the richness underneath.
Exactly. So let's paint the scene. It's 1921. The Baha'i world is reeling from Abdu'l-Bahá's passing. Imagine the uncertainty, the sense of loss.
It's almost unimaginable, isn't it, to suddenly lose the center of the covenant, the one who had guided them for so long.
And then, into this void, steps Shoghi Effendi. He's only 24 years old at the time.
A young man thrust onto the world stage at such a pivotal moment.
But his early letters, they don't just offer condolences. They provide, a roadmap, a clear path forward.
So true. He reminds everyone of Abdu'l-Bahá's promise that he wouldn't abandon his followers. He guides them to the will and testament. It's like he's saying, look, the blueprint is already here.
It's incredible how he balanced comforting the community with this call to action.
He didn't shy away from the grief either. He acknowledged the gloom, as he called it, of Abdu'l-Bahá's passing. But then in the same breath, he speaks of the morning light breaking upon the Holy Land. That must have been so powerful for the Baha'is to hear.
Offering hope while acknowledging the pain. Such a delicate balance.
And speaking of powerful figures, we can't forget the greatest holy leaf, Baha'i Khanum, Abdu'l-Bahá's sister.
The greatest holy leaf. What an incredible soul. What stands out to you about her role, especially during that tumultuous time?
Well, think about it. Not everyone in Abdu'l-Bahá's family remained loyal to the covenant. Some even actively opposed Shoghi Effendi.
It's hard to believe, isn't it? Family members trying to undermine his authority.
But Baha'i Khanum, she was unwavering in her support. She was a shield for Shoghi Effendi, offering him guidance and protection.
A true pillar of strength. And her message to the Baha'is was so clear. Love and service to humanity, that's the true power of the faith.
Not worldly influence or political maneuvering.
Right. And this spirit of service really connects to the whole development of Baha'i administration, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Shoghi Effendi saw structure not as bureaucracy, but as a way to channel that love and service, to effectively build a better world.
So it wasn't about creating a hierarchy or a power structure.
No, not at all. It was about creating a system where service was the driving force. And at the heart of that system is consultation. Shoghi Effendi stressed purity of motive, detachment from personal opinions, seeking God's guidance.
It sounds so different from how things work in the real world.
It is, and we see that difference so clearly in the concept of Baha'i elections. No campaigning, no platforms.
Hold on, how do you even know who to vote for then?
That's such a good question, and it really highlights how different Baha'i elections are. It's about reflecting on spiritual qualities. Loyalty, devotion, wisdom. The Universal House of Justice even states that being elected isn't a right or an honor.
It's a duty, responsibility.
Precisely. And this understanding of service, this idea of working together for the betterment of humanity, it really comes to life in the plans Shoghi Effendi initiated.
Like the 7-year plan, right?
Exactly. It wasn't just about spreading the faith, but about systematically building the capacity within the Baha'i community to carry out the work of building a new world.
So it was about empowering people to take action, to be active participants, not passive observers.
Exactly. And he provided practical tools like hukla.
Which I think is a concept we'll need to unpack a bit further in our next segment.
Absolutely. It deserves its own deep dive for sure.
But before we get there, we need to talk about the challenges Shoghi Effendi faced. Because it wasn't all smooth sailing, was it?
Not at all. Think about it. The Baha'i world is grieving. The community is still finding its footing.
And then you have individuals like Avery actively trying to sow discord.
Claiming the Baha'is were enemies of the state, stirring up old prejudices.
It's incredible how much he had to contend with.
But he met each challenge head-on, with clarity, wisdom, and an unwavering commitment to the covenant.
He really modeled that spirit of resilience, didn't he?
Absolutely. He encouraged the believers to hold fast to the principles of the faith, to see these challenges as opportunities to grow stronger.
Like weathering a storm.
And speaking of storms, there were also external pressures to deal with. persecution, legal battles.
It's amazing how he navigated all of that while simultaneously building up the administrative order, guiding the expansion of the faith.
He was a tireless worker, completely dedicated to the cause.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How did he manage it all?
Well, that's something we'll delve into even further next time as we explore the practical implications of Shoghi Effendi's vision and how we can apply those lessons to our own lives today. But that's a conversation for our next segment.
I can't wait.
It's a question that really gets to the heart of what it means to be a Baha'i, doesn't it? Applying those lessons.
It does. And to do that, I think we need to look at some of the specific elements Shoghi Effendi established, like, the 19-day feast, something we often take for granted.
Oh, that's a great point. We think of it as this time for prayer, consultation, socializing.
Right, but it obviously wasn't always this, established thing.
Exactly. In those early years, the feast was multifaceted. Shoghi Effendi saw it as a way to build relationships.
To strengthen those bonds of unity.
Exactly. And not just between the believers themselves, but also between them and their assemblies.
So weaving those different layers of community together.
You've got it. And there was even, a designated time for offering suggestions to the assembly. Yeah. It was the space for open communication, but Shoghi Effendi also cautioned against, criticisms that might undermine the assembly's authority.
So it was about maintaining order, but also allowing for dialogue.
Striking that balance, just like in consultation itself.
Right. That makes so much sense. And all of this was happening as Baha'i communities were growing rapidly.
Right. And Shoghi Effendi offered guidance on adapting the feast for larger gatherings. He encouraged decentralization, at the neighborhood level.
So that spirit of unity wouldn't get lost as the community expanded.
Exactly. It's like he was anticipating those growing pains and providing solutions.
And speaking of essential pieces of the puzzle, I think we need to circle back to Bahá'u'lláh. We were just talking about that before the break.
Yes, Bahá'u'lláh, such a foundational principle.
It's more than just giving, isn't it?
Absolutely. It was ordained by Baha'u'lláh himself. And Shoghi Effendi, he took great care to explain its application and its spiritual significance.
It's about recognizing that everything we have ultimately comes from God.
And choosing to channel that abundance back into the work of the cause.
Okay, that makes sense. And while we're on the topic of, learning and growth, I think a good time to talk about summer schools.
Oh, summer schools. They were so central to Shoghi Effendi's vision.
More than just educational retreats, right?
Right. They were about spiritual development, deepening understanding of the teachings, creating those bonds of fellowship.
Nurturing the individual and the community.
Exactly. He saw them as, fertile ground for growth. And he was very intentional about connecting learning with service.
Oh, how so?
He emphasized that summer schools should be linked to specific goals, particularly in the realm of teaching. It was about equipping individuals to share the message of Baha'u'lláh.
So it wasn't just about absorbing knowledge, it was about applying it.
Yes. It was about translating learning into action. And that same pattern is reflected in his approach to pioneering. He urged believers to not just, settle in new territories, but to focus on raising up individuals from within those communities.
So it wasn't about imposing beliefs on others.
No, it was about empowering them to embrace the teachings and become agents of change within their own communities.
That's powerful. And it reminds me of another crucial aspect of Shoghi Effendi's ministry, his role as a protector of the faith. As the Baha'i community spread, it became even more important to make sure the teachings were, understood correctly.
Oh, absolutely. The teachings are the foundation upon which everything else rests.
Right. And he did this through his writing, right?
His prolific writing. He tackled a huge range of topics. The station of Baha'u'lláh, the covenant, the nature of Baha'i administration. He was creating this roadmap, this clear guide to understanding the faith.
And of course, there were those who sought to distort those teachings.
Covenant breakers.
Right, like Bareri, who tried to revive those old accusations that Baha'is were enemies of the government.
And Sohrab, who criticized the emerging administrative order, claiming it stifled individual initiative.
And then there was Ruth White, who even questioned the authenticity of Abdu'l-Bahá's will and testament. These were serious challenges, weren't they?
They absolutely were, but Shoghi Effendi addressed each one head-on, refuting the accusations, providing evidence, and urging the believers to remain steadfast in their commitment to the covenant.
It reminds us that disagreements will happen, even in a spiritual community.
But it's how we respond that really matters. Shoghi Effendi modeled that unwavering commitment to the principles of the faith. And he saw these challenges, well, he saw them as opportunities.
Opportunities.
Yes, to clarify our understanding, to solidify our foundations.
Like those storms we talked about earlier. They can be destructive, but they can also lead to greater stability.
Exactly. And this brings us to what might be the most defining aspect of Shoghi Effendi's ministry: the initiation of those plans to spread the teachings of Baha'u'lláh globally.
The plans, they were so instrumental in shaping the Baha'i world we know today.
Right, and it all started with the 7-year plan.
Focused on North America.
Yes. Shoghi Effendi called on the believers to arise, to take ownership, to spread the faith, and, at the same time, deepen their own understanding and build up their administrative capacity.
And then came this whole wave of plans, building on those successes.
Mm-hmm.
India, Pakistan, Burma, the British Isles.
Iran, Iraq. The faith was expanding at an incredible pace.
And it wasn't just about giving vague instructions. He was incredibly detailed. He outlined goals, targets, strategies. He stressed the vital role of pioneering.
It was this amazing blend of spiritual sacrifice and, well, strategic planning.
Like an orchestra, every instrument playing its part.
And then it all culminated in the 10-year crusade, launched in 1953.
A global effort to establish the faith in every remaining country and territory.
Can you imagine the audacity of that vision? It was a spiritual crusade, a call to become Knights of Baha'u'lláh.
To detach from worldly pursuits and dedicate themselves to the cause.
Exactly. And remember, all of this was happening while he was also laying the groundwork for the Universal House of Justice.
So he was already preparing the Baha'i world for that next stage. But how did he actually do that?
Well, it was a gradual process. He started by establishing national spiritual assemblies, creating a framework for coordinated action on a national level. Then, in 1951, he announced the formation of the International Baha'i Council.
Which was essentially the precursor to the Universal House of Justice.
Exactly. And of course, there were the Hands of the Cause of God.
Those high-ranking individuals appointed by Shoghi Effendi to safeguard and propagate the faith.
They played a crucial role, especially during the period following Shoghi Effendi's passing in 1957.
That must have been a devastating loss for the Baha'i world.
It was. But the Hands of the Cause, they stepped forward, they offered guidance, they ensured that the faith, the work of the cause, continued.
Even in the absence of the guardian.
The covenant, it's the bedrock of the faith. It ensures continuity, even amidst those moments of profound loss.
And that leads us back to our initial question. How do we apply those lessons? How do we translate Shoghi Effendi's vision into action in our own lives?
A question we'll explore in our final segment.
All right, we're back, ready to wrap up our deep dive into the Guardian of the Faith.
It's been quite a journey. Reliving those early years, Shoghi Effendi's leadership, the challenges, the triumphs.
Definitely a lot to unpack. And as we think about Shoghi Effendi's vision, it's clear it wasn't just about building institutions.
It was about cultivating a spirit of service.
Right. So how do we take all of this, all these lofty ideals, and actually make them real in our lives?
Well, for me, it always comes back to consultation.
Consultation. That seems to be a recurring theme in our conversations.
It's foundational, isn't it? And Shoghi Effendi, he really emphasized approaching decisions with the right mindset.
Purity of motive.
Exactly. Detaching from our own opinions, seeking God's guidance.
It's tough, though, isn't it? Letting go of our ego.
It's a constant struggle. But it's worth it, because when we do, we create this space where everyone feels heard, where decisions are made for the good of the community.
And it's not just about formal Baha'i settings either.
Right. It's about how we interact with our families, at work, even with friends.
Shifting from, like, competition to collaboration.
Love that. And building on that, I think Shoghi Effendi's emphasis on planning is so relevant.
Oh, yeah. He was meticulous with those plans to spread the faith.
He was. And in a way, we can apply that same approach to our own lives, setting intentions for our spiritual growth.
Not just drifting along, but actively engaging with our spiritual development.
Exactly. Creating a roadmap, aligning our actions with our goals.
And speaking of goals, service can't be forgotten. Shoghi Effendi was always reminding us about that.
Service to humanity, contributing to a better world.
And it doesn't have to be these big, dramatic gestures.
No, it can be those small acts of kindness, those everyday opportunities to make a difference.
Right. And I think it's also important to keep deepening our understanding of the teachings.
Shoghi Effendi spent so much time clarifying, safeguarding those teachings.
Because they're the foundation.
The bedrock of our beliefs and actions. So yeah, we need to be active learners, constantly seeking to understand more deeply.
Engaging with the writings. asking questions.
And being honest with ourselves. There will be moments of doubt, times when our faith is tested.
Oh, absolutely. There will be challenges.
But look at Shoghi Effendi. He faced so many obstacles. Covenant breakers, external pressures, attacks on the faith. And yet, he never wavered.
He always brought it back to the covenant.
Yes. And he encouraged the believers to see those challenges not as setbacks, but as opportunities.
To grow stronger, to refine their understanding.
Exactly, like navigating those storms.
And knowing that those storms can actually make us more resilient.
Right. And in those moments when we feel lost, unsure, we have the writings of Shoghi Effendi, the guidance of the Universal House of Justice.
That compass to keep us on track.
And I think ultimately it comes down to detachment.
Attachment.
Yeah. Like Shoghi Effendi, detachment from worldly pursuits, selfish desires, the need for recognition.
Focusing on service. Recognizing that our true worth comes from our efforts to serve God and humanity.
Yes. It's about striving to be those pure, selfless souls that he envisioned.
Radiating the lights of Bahá'u'lláh.
Beautifully said. You know, reflecting on Shoghi Effendi's life, it fills me with such gratitude.
Me too. He may be gone, but his spirit is still with us.
Guiding us, inspiring us.
So as we go out into the world, let's carry his example with us.
That dedication to the covenant, that commitment to planning, that love for humanity.
And let's use it to build the kind of Baha'i community he dreamed of.
A community of unity, love, and justice.
Until next time, everyone, happy deep diving.